Hi everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. This evening I've made it out to Two Tree Island. Well, hopefully that's where I am. Yeah, as you can see, it's really dark. But I want to continue on with my nighttime photography, and a bit like the light trails that I did last week, I wanted to try some still wall fire spinning, which I've come down here to the old boat wreck to see if I can do that type of photography this evening. So yeah, it'll hopefully work out really quite well. So let's see what I come up with. So setting up the camera is going to be a little bit tricky tonight because of focusing. So what I've had to do while I've been setting up the actual camera is take the video light off and obviously put it on full power, shooting, pointing it at the boat, and then obviously using the camera to focus on that, and then obviously taking an exposure. So the camera that I've got set up is on f10 ISO 100 and 30-second exposure. So at the moment with that exposure, it's making everything dark, which is actually what I really want, because there is a little bit of detail in the sky, a little bit of colour as such in the sky, which is okay, but I want to be able to then create and paint the floor with light, both using the video light. I've got a third tripod with me this evening that hopefully will be able to position that so I'm illuminating the light, and then to one side of the actual composition I'm going to be able to do the fire steel wall spinning as well. So hopefully that will work out really quite well. Now there are a couple of tutorials online about obviously how to go about doing steel wall photography. Yeah, key thing is really make sure obviously that you're careful, because obviously you are setting the steel wall alight, so make sure that you've obviously got protective equipment as well, so safety goggles particularly, gloves as well, to make sure that obviously you're protecting your hands and that you're doing it in an area that's not obviously going to catch light. Now luckily enough, obviously this time of year in winter, there is very unlikely that any of this ground is going to be dry enough to actually catch, but if I was here in summer then that would be a completely different story and not something that I want set alight for obvious reasons. So I've also got all the gear with me. I'm using obviously steel wool for obvious reasons. I've got a whisk as well that's obviously on a piece of rope as well that I'll be able to spin around. I'm wearing some old clothes, so should obviously any sparks land on that it won't obviously catch as well. Unfortunately though, the zip did break when I tried to put my jacket on, so yeah, probably already put on the Christmas podge already, but anyway, it's an old jacket so it doesn't necessarily matter that much. But for the camera itself, what I've, as I say, got it set up on f10 ISO 100, 30-second exposure, 17mm on the wide angle lens, so obviously it can create some fantastic images. Now as I'm obviously taking it, as you can possibly see, I've got my torch on, but I will obviously be using that to position myself, but I will need to use the actual spotlight on the camera itself, so I'll be obviously talking through some of the compositions and some of the images once obviously I've set it up. So yeah, sorry, a bit of a Blair Witch Project type set up with the light in here, so sorry about that, but as you can appreciate, obviously it's quite tricky in the dark. But as you can see from the B-roll there, I've set up the video lights, the LED light, so that's obviously illuminating nicely the boat itself. So now what I need to do is conserve the battery on that and set up obviously the steel wall kit as well, and then go from there. So a little bit of trial and error there, more error than trial, but anyway, I've managed to get one image. So what I've actually got put onto the camera, I forgot to mention earlier, I've got my cable release on because I'm here on my own. It's a little bit tricky to obviously do everything all at once, but having my cable release on, what I'm able to do with it is lock it up so the shutter is on continuous mode, so burst mode, even though the exposures, each exposure is 30 seconds long. So it will take obviously a 30-second exposure and straight away take another 30-second exposure and so on and so forth. What that means is it's allowing me to at least get hopefully one 30-second exposure with obviously the still wall alight and obviously then spinning around. And the first image has actually worked out really quite well after I remembered that I needed to change the actual still wall. Now, and what I found, one tip that I found, you need the fine still wall to actually do this with. So the pack that I actually bought had fine, medium and hard still wall in it. The hard one doesn't work whatsoever. The medium one does burn, but the fine one burns even better, and that one kind of gets it started, and then you can use the medium wall to obviously burn for a little bit longer and obviously create obviously all of those sparks, etc. Another thing that I've done with the camera as well, I normally keep it in auto white balance, but watching a couple of tutorials online, I set it, they mentioned in the tutorials about putting it on to daylight white balance so that you still retain the orange glow of the still wall once it's burning. So again, if you're obviously thinking and considering doing this one yourself, then obviously make sure that you set it up onto that one, because otherwise if it's on auto white balance, it's going to make the actual trails of the still wall white. Now you may wish to have that, that's absolutely fine, but personally I really quite like the orange glow of it as well. So yeah, hopefully working out really quite well for this one. Let's try and set up another quick composition and go from there. So like I mentioned, be careful if you are trying to think about doing this one. There is obviously that risk of danger, but the key thing really to remember is where you're actually spinning the steel wall. Is the actual ground going to actually catch a light? Because there is that high risk of fire. So please obviously be aware of that when you obviously attempt this type of photography. But to be fair, the actual kits that it cost me to do this was probably about 4 or 5 quid maximum for the whisk, the kitchen whisk that you use. Had obviously a bit length of cord and a carabiner to connect to it. The steel wall itself was only a couple of quid as well. So all that I sort of picked up from the local sort of pound shop as such. So yeah, all in, obviously, as I say, give or take about a £5 or so. And the other thing as well to consider when you're actually doing this photography is making sure that you're a fair distance from obviously your photography equipment, because yeah, like me, you shell out a hell of a lot of your savings for your own kit, and the last thing you want is it to obviously be damaged and singed in any way. So yeah, bear that one in mind as well. I really want to credit as well someone that's inspired me to do this type of photography this evening. There's a chap on Instagram that I follow, and local or within Essex to me, Terry Spires. He's actually sent me a couple of videos about how to obviously get set up in this, and I've been wanting to do it for quite some time now. Never had the opportunity, the time, nor the actual location to consider, but I'm really pleased that I've sort of got myself into this. I took obviously a third composition as well, and obviously we'll put that up, and luckily enough I've actually got 2 out of that particular setup as well. So 4 images in total from this evening shoot is really good. I'm super pleased to be able to do it, and as I say, thank you so much, Terry, for the encouragement and support that you've given me, the information as well. Yeah, really, yeah, appreciate that. So thank you ever so much. So if you've really enjoyed it tonight, please make sure you give it a thumbs up, leave us a comment, as I really do enjoy those comments. And until next time, when who knows where I'll be, as it's Christmas or coming up to Christmas Eve, take care and stay safe.